3 bone-chilling true tales of hidden dread, forbidden summer vacations exposed and revealed. The sun was setting on a seemingly perfect summer day, but whispers of dread floated in the air, chilling the bones of anyone brave enough to listen. In the shadow of palm trees swaying in the breeze, 3 summer vacations turned into nightmares beyond imagination. What happened in those hidden corners of the world? What secrets were buried beneath the golden sands? First up, a family from Ohio thought they struck gold when they booked a getaway on a remote island. The brochures promised breathtaking views, exotic wildlife, and memories that would last a lifetime. But hidden in the fine print, there was a warning about a missing persons case that had shadowed the island for years. On their first day, they found a rusted old boat washed ashore. The locals avoided it, casting nervous glances. But curiosity got the better of the father. Until he noticed a faded, blood-stained name carved into the hull. It was the same name as the last person reported missing. A shiver ran down his spine. "You shouldn't be here," a local muttered, her voice trembling. That was the moment they realized, maybe paradise wasn't so safe after all. Then, there was the group of college friends who thought they were in for a thrill when they booked a cabin in the mountains of Colorado. Legend had it that a bizarre creature roamed the woods at night, and instead of running scared, they decided to embrace the urban legends. They brought cameras, ready to document the absurd. But when the sun went down, laughter turned into a suffocating silence. Branches snapped outside, sending the friends into a panicked frenzy. Their phones flickered no service. Suddenly, the sound of a low growl echoed through the trees, paralyzing them with fear. They rushed to the window only to see glowing eyes staring back at them. What were they playing with? And finally, a couple from California, searching for romance, ventured to the swamps of Louisiana with visions of lazy boat rides and enchanting sunsets. They hadn't heard the stories of the swamp ghosts, haunting the waters. On their second night, while they canoed under the blanket of stars, they hit something hard. Heart racing, they found an old, rotting tree trunk. Yet, under moonlight, a skeletal hand seemed to reach out from the mud below. Dread washed over them. This wasn't a treasure, but an omen. They paddled back quickly, but the whispers of lost souls surrounded them. Were they meant to join them? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the fear gripping them tighter than ever, these families raced against time, grappling with what they uncovered. Each terrified heart thumped wildly, grasping at threads of survival as the sun set on these treacherous vacations. Would they make it home? Or would they become just another story, whispered among the living, around campfires that danced in the dark? Each vacation was forbidden, each story left a tantalizing mystery. What else might lie hidden, waiting for the next unwary travelers? A shroud of darkness fell across the Ohio family's island paradise. The stars flickered like distant warning beacons, but they were blissfully ignorant. The rusted boat sat nearby, a silent sentinel watching over them. That night, despite the unease gnawing at him, the father dismissed the warning. It was just a local superstition, a tale to scare tourists, but as the waves lapped against the shore, restless whispers twisted through the palm trees. The daughter, Megan, heard something. A haunting melody, almost like a lullaby carried by the wind. She left the safety of her parents' cabin, drawn towards the sound. "Megan!" Her mother called out, panic rising in her voice. But the girl didn't turn back. Something inside her urged her onward. Meanwhile, in the Colorado mountains, the glow from the college friends' phones barely illuminated their faces, locked in expressions of dread. The growling had subsided, but the terror echoed in their minds. Curious, bold Jenna stepped away from the window, wanting to prove there was nothing out there. "I'll be right back," she declared, her voice trembling. The woods consumed her, dark and thick. She felt each crunch of twigs beneath her shoes sound like thunder. Suddenly, a flash illuminated the bushes, the creature's eyes reflecting the light. Every fiber of her being screamed to run, but she couldn't tear her gaze away. What was it? An animal? Or something more sinister? In the depths of the Louisiana swamps, Jessica and Paul dusted off the adrenaline from their earlier encounter with death. They couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. Trying to re-establish the romantic narrative of their trip, they pushed deeper into the swamp, oblivious to the shadows that stirred just beneath the water's surface. The silence hung heavy, only interrupted by the occasional croak of frogs and the rustle of unseen creatures, but it was too quiet. It felt wrong. Jessica glanced over her shoulder, convinced she saw something moving in her peripheral vision. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Paul squinted, shaking his head. "It's probably just the trees," he said, but the unease in his tone betrayed him. As if in response, a loud splash echoed nearby, a thrash of something breaking the water's surface. They paddled backward, hearts racing. Peering into the inky depths, they realized those were not just tree roots below. The skeletal hand, now unmistakably alive with a ghostly shimmer, broke through the surface before slipping back into the dark. That image seared itself into their minds. Were they intruders in a realm where the dead could reach for the living? Back on the island, Megan reached the old boat. The song grew louder, wrapping around her as she peered inside. The haunting voice seemed to call her by name, echoing through her core. Inside, she discovered a tattered diary, the last entry smeared with ink and blood. "Help, I'm still here," it read. Heart pounding, she dropped the diary, retreating as a splintering noise filled the air, the sound of wood crumbling behind her. As the chilling reality sank in, dread electrified the air. The parents rushed out, just in time to see their daughter standing frozen, her wide eyes fixed on the darkness of the sea. In the mountains, Jenna felt a cold rush of dread. She was no longer alone. The growl returned at her back, deeper and more menacing than before. In a wild instinct, she turned to run, but the forest closed in around her. Branches whipped at her like accusing fingers as the shadows shifted, pursuing her with relentless determination, and in the swamp, Paul and Jessica raced back to their canoe, adrenaline pumping through their veins. The water churned, dark shapes swirling around them under the moonlight. Panic set in when they realized they were no longer alone. The ghosts of the swamp were reaching out, claiming what was theirs. Each location pulsed with tension, a synchronized pulse of impending doom. Their unknowing trespasses had awakened forces that would not let them escape easily. What reality would they face in these vast nightmares? And as their screams mixed with whispers of the past, one question lingered in the air like a storm on the horizon: who would survive to tell the tale? The wind howled across the Ohio island, a furious symphony that seemed to batter against the family's cabin. Megan stood transfixed, the darkness before her morphing into a living entity bearing down on her. As her heart raced, she felt the chill from the sea wrap tighter around her, smothering her resolve. "Megan!" Her mother's voice cut through the haze, but the girl was lost in the grip of an inexplicable lure, her breath quickening as the melody beckoned. "Stay back!" her father yelled, sprinting toward her, panic etching itself into every crease of his face. But every step he took felt futile against the growing shadows. Out in the mountains, Jenna stumbled, limbs flailing as she sprinted through the dense underbrush. The growl followed a low, menacing rumble that vibrated against her bones, urging her to move faster. She could feel the weight of it pressing down on her, each snap of a branch behind her seeping deeper into her mind. "Why did I step away?" she thought frantically, eyes wide. Trees loomed like gnarled specters around her. She could barely breathe, then an unbearable silence. Jenna dared a glance over her shoulder, her heart thudding like a drum in her ears. The forest was still, or had the creature gone? Before she could think, a fierce roar erupted, shaking her to the core. Adrenaline surged. She ran harder, limbs propelled by fear, until the light from her friends' phones broke through the thicket ahead. "Jenna!" they called, relief rushing through their voices. But she wasn't done running. "Get back! It's coming!" she screamed, warning them of the terror that had her in its sights. Meanwhile, in the swamp, Jessica and Paul paddled fiercely, the canoe bucking under the pressure of the water, alive with unseen threats. "We've got to get to shore," Paul urged, his voice strained, glancing wildly at the water that seemed to ripple in malevolent anticipation. "Faster!" Jessica yelled, terror twisting her gut. But the ghostly hands below were relentless. Each time she thought she could push forward, unseen forces tugged at the canoe, toying with them. Suddenly, a dark mass surged up from the depths. A shadowy figure, eerie and otherworldly, lunged toward them. Paul barely registered the outstretched skeletal hand before he yelled, "Row! Now!" They dug in, hearts hammering, rowing like mad. But remnants of lost souls echoed through the swamp, vibrating against their chests. At the island, shadows began to congeal around Megan. With her back to the boat, she finally let her gaze slip away from the deep water. Glimpses of shadows slid along the sand, merging into silhouettes that danced, beckoning her. "Megan!" Her mother's frantic calls grew fainter. The girl took a step back, then another, her instincts warring with the commanding song that ensnared her senses. As she turned to run, the haunting melody twisted into screams, reverberating deep in her heart. But it was too late. The shadows lunged forward, hungry for the warmth of the living. As Jenna stumbled into the clearing, wild-eyed and breathless, she saw the confusion on her friends' faces. "It's not just an animal," she gasped, the air laden with urgency. Just beyond the barrier of light, an unseen figure melded into the trees, its predatory gaze fixed squarely on her. In the swamp, Jessica and Paul collided against the shoreline, chaos erupting as they leapt from the canoe. But the water churned violently, waves crashing back like screams. From the depths, a visceral anger surged upward, threatening to drown them in its fury. Did they truly bring forth the dead? And as their worlds began to unravel, one piercing thought escaped them all: whatever was awakened would not be satisfied until it had claimed its due. Behind them, lurking in dark corners and forgotten realms, choices would be made that could shatter or save them. The rising tide of malevolence became a question echoing in the air: who among them would dare face the truth? The night was far from over, and the darkness had plans that would soon unfold. A scream echoed through the clearing, piercing the silence like a shattered glass. Jenna's heart raced as she spun around, eyes wide, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The shadows at the edge of the trees writhed, growing bolder and more defined, taking on shapes that whispered of dark intentions. "Jenna, what did you see?" David, one of her friends, asked, anxiety brimming in his voice. Around them, the others stood frozen, whispers of doubt clouding their fear. The growl surged again, this time louder, a chorus of terror intertwining with the wind. "Get back!" Jenna shouted, trembling. The last thing she wanted was to drag them into her nightmare. But how could she guide them to safety when the very air crackled with danger? Just behind her, the trees teetered, branches bending at odd angles as if bowing to a tempest unseen. The ground pulsed, ancient and alive, hinting at something buried deep below. Meanwhile, on the beach, Megan stumbled backward into the cool sand, gasping as the shadow figures loomed closer, their outlines sharp against the dim light spilling from the cabin. Their dark edges flickered with fury, and the song that once attracted her now morphed into a cacophony of screams, chilling bone deep. "Megan!" Her father's voice pierced through the chaos, but it felt distant, a thread fraying in her consciousness. She tore her gaze away from the shadows, instinctively searching for her family. But a pulling sensation wrapped around her, the darkness whispering promises of secrets comprehensible only to those enthralled. At the swamp's edge, Jessica and Paul scrambled up the bank, the muddy earth clinging to their shoes. Panic turned to disbelief as the water surged violently behind them, forming waves that seemed to reach for their very souls, hungry and relentless. "Did you see that?" Paul gasped, glancing back. "It's like it's alive." Shadows danced within the murky depths, and they moved with a sinister rhythm and unholy ballet that sent shivers down their spines. Sweat trickled down Jessica's face as she fought against the raw terror that threatened to swallow her whole. "We have to go. Now." But before they could escape, a hand reached up through the water, long and bony, grasping at empty air before plunging back down. Each moment stretched into an eternity. Megan began to run, her body propelled by pure instinct, fleeing the darkness, the song of doom echoing in her ears. The shadows reached out, but she was swift, adrenaline surging as she dashed toward the cabin. Jenna and her friend stood at the threshold of fear. "We can't just stand here," David urged again, pushing through his reservations. "What if we are the ones they want? There's no talking to it." Jenna roared, her voice trembling. "We must take a stand." The earth shook beneath their feet, as if the island itself was awakening. With a shared glance, they made a pact. They had to confront the source of this terror. As the dark figures encroached, Megan and Jenna's paths began to converge. Each heartbeat echoed with urgency. Decisions loomed ahead like shadows, heavy and haunting. And somewhere, deep within the abyss, an ancient entity stirred, hunger burning in its core. Fate had woven its threads too tightly for any escape. Whatever corner of the island they had tapped into, they would soon realize, the past didn't just want to be remembered, it wanted to be repeated painfully. Would they uncover the truth that haunted the island, or would they fall into the very darkness they sought to defeat? Each step pulled them deeper. The night had just begun to unfold its secrets. Megan bolted toward the cabin, muscles ignited by terror. The shadows were closing in, crawling along the sandy beach like spiders eager to ensnare their prey. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest, each beat a frantic reminder of what lay behind her. The shadows, twisted and intangible, swirled in a grotesque dance, whispering her name in a dark lullaby. "Please, no," she gasped, choking on the salty air. Just when she thought she might escape, she felt a cold hand brushing against her ankle from the sand below, anchoring her in place. Panic surged forward, and she pulled her foot free, wincing as she tore it away from the grasp. Meanwhile, Jenna's voice sliced through the chaos. "We move now. No one gets left behind." The group rallied, every eye darting between the flickering darkness and the safety of the cabin. With renewed determination, they dashed forward. As Jenna led the way, the shadows seemed to pulsate, their forms shifting in reaction to the burgeoning hope in her friends. Would they truly find safety behind the cabin doors? Or was it merely a trap, a cruel joke played by the ancient entity that thrived on their fear? The door creaked ominously as David flung it open, the sound echoing through the eerie silence. Inside, the cabin felt suffocating, every corner whispering warnings of those who had come before. Dust hung in the air, thick like the dread pooling in their stomachs. "What now?" he panted, panic creeping into his voice as he scanned the room. "Lock it," Jenna commanded, eyes wide as she turned to face the encroaching darkness. The windows rattled, as if answering their call to chaos. Each gust of wind carried faint cries, desperate and haunting echoes of the lost. The group scrambled, securing the door with a heavy table that threatened to topple under their trembling weight. The shadows pulsed against the cabin, restless like caged animals. "Is it gone?" Jessica whispered, barely able to keep the tremor from her voice. Just then, a sharp rapping resounded at the window. The glass bowed slightly, an otherworldly force shaking the very foundation of their refuge. A familiar face pressed against the pane. Megan's father. "Let me in," he shouted, panic-laden eyes wild with terror. Jenna's heart sank. Deep down, she knew that letting him in might expose them to whatever horrors lurked just outside. "No. We can't," she yelled back, firm despite her own doubt. But the pleading in Megan's eyes broke her resolve. "Dad!" Megan cried, rushing toward the door. Conflict erupted in the group, and they fell into desperate arguments. But the shadows didn't wait for their decisions. They slithered, slipping under the doorframe, dark tendrils weaving through the cracks like snakes hunting for prey. With a bold move, Jenna grabbed a lamp, her breath quickening. "We have to fight back." Light flickered wildly, pushing back against the shadows momentarily, but the glimmer faded quickly, swallowed by the encroaching dark. Just then, a collective gasp echoed in the cabin as the shadows twisted into recognizable forms, the lost souls of the island, faces gaunt and hollow, eyes burning with unquenched fury. They whispered ancient secrets, begging for release, their voices blending into a symphony of despair. In that moment, dread wrapped around Jenna's throat. Memories flooded her mind, stories of sacrifices, betrayals, and forgotten loves, the true cost of this cursed land. "Stay together," she yelled, gripping the lamp tighter. She had to keep them focused, keep them unified. Their hope flickered, dangerously close to extinguishing, but they needed to decide: would they try to uncover the truth of the island or flee and risk everything to an unforgiving darkness? The shadows surged, pushing against their last bastion of light. The air grew thick, choking them with terror and uncertainty. Would they learn the haunting truths of this land, or would they be the next to be claimed, lost to the darkness forever? As they faced the specters, Jenna's mind raced. There was more to discover, more to fight against. But time was running out. Would they dare embrace the knowledge that could either save them or doom them entirely? The air crackled with tension as the lost souls hovered closer, their hollow eyes locked onto Jenna. Her heart raced, a drum of fear pounding in her ears. She could feel the cold sweat gathering at her temples, the lamp trembling in her grip. The desperate whispers grew louder, echoing tales of betrayal and forgotten promises, wrapping around her like an icy coil. "Megan, don't!" Jenna snapped, yanking her back from the door as thick tendrils of shadow slithered past. "We can't let him in." "No. He's my dad." Megan's voice cracked, desperation spilling out. She grasped the door handle, fighting back against Jenna's hold. "I can't leave him out there." David stepped forward, glancing from Jenna to Megan, uncertainty etched on his face. "We've got to stay put. If we open that door," his voice trailed off, the implications hanging in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and dark. The shadows twisted, their forms shifting with every heartbeat, an amalgamation of the past slowly creeping into the present. "Release us," they seemed to hiss, their mournful howls sending chills prickling down everyone's spine. "Great," Jessica muttered, her eyes wide with terror. "Just what we need, psycho ghosts. That'll fix everything." A shattering crash rang out as a window exploded, sending shards of glass cascading onto the floor. The group flinched, fear coursing through them. Jenna turned, her pulse racing. This wasn't just a resistance, it felt like an all-out assault. In her mind, Jenna remembered a story about the island whispered in her childhood, a tale of angered spirits cursed for their deeds, crying out for salvation yet bringing doom to those who stumbled upon their domain. The very essence of the story seemed to weave through the air, pressing down on them with a weight that was suffocating. "Megan," Jenna said, her voice low but urgent. "This isn't your dad. It can't be. It's just a mask they wear. If we let him in, we could lose everything." Megan's face crumpled, torn between hope and terror. For a moment, she looked lost, trapped in the turmoil of her own emotions. But then she shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "We can't abandon him. He's out there all alone." The shadows grew restless, their forms surging toward the group like a black tide threatening to consume them. Jenna raised the lamp higher, the flickering flame a fragile beacon amid the chaos. "I want to let them take you, Megan. We need to fight." With a deep breath, Jenna plunged ahead. We have to find a way to break their hold. She turned, her eyes scanning the shadows frantically. Maybe there's something in this cabin, something that can help us. Jessica grabbed a dusty old tome from a shelf cluttered with cobwebs. This must be some kind of journal. Her voice brimmed with a strange mix of excitement and fear. We can find a way to confront them or release them. Jenna nodded, adrenaline pushing her forward. Do it. Open it. The shadows shrieked in protest, a cacophony of tortured wails that clawed at their minds. Fools! You cannot escape. The journal crackled open, the pages whispering secrets from across time. As Jessica read the fraying words, the very air glittered, vibrating with an energy that felt both ancient and powerful. The shadows recoiled, sensing danger, but they were relentless in their pursuit. Jenna's heart raced as she leaned closer. Did they truly have a chance to unearth the truth? Could the answers they sought provide salvation or lead to a dark deeper than they could ever imagine? And then, a chilling thought surfaced. What if the island had claimed not just the lost souls, but the very essence of their identities? The shadows lunged forward, filling the cabin with dread. Jenna felt the air grow cold, and time seemed to slow as the specters reached for them, desperate to drag them into the void. Could they uncover the truth of the island before it was too late? Or would they become just another whisper in its haunted legacy? With the weight of their decision looming over them, Jenna straightened, determination flooding her veins. Let us dig deeper, before it's too late. Just as they braced themselves for whatever lay ahead, the door rattled violently, the sound echoing through their very bones. Would the answer lie behind that door, or was it the true harbinger of their demise? The door shuddered again, rattling like a freight train rumbling past. Jenna's grip tightened on the lamp, the flame sputtering in response to her racing heartbeat. The shadows surged, their whispers now mixed with guttural growls, angry and insistent. Megan, hold on. Jenna shouted, dragging her friend further from the door. We have to figure this out. Behind them, Jessica's voice trembled as she read aloud from the journal, the souls cannot be freed until the truth is unveiled. To confront them means facing the darkness they embody. A sudden crash from outside made everyone jump. The ghostly forms seemed to stretch, their lips curling into a sinister smile, reveling in the chaos. Jenna could see Megan's eyes dart back to the door, filled with a longing that twisted Jenna's stomach. They're lying. Jenna screamed, her voice slicing through the noise. Megan, they're pretending. You know your dad, this can't be him. But what if it is? Megan's plea cut through the air like a blade, fresh tears spilling down her face. A piercing wail echoed through the cabin, the shadows coiling ever closer. David stepped forward, his face pale. We need a plan. Opening the door means letting something inside that we can't control. He hesitated, glancing back at the window, where shadowy figures flickered beyond the shards of glass. We might not survive it. Ignoring the knot in her gut, Jenna felt an instinctive surge of courage. What if we confront them head-on? Jessica frowned, a deep furrow forming between her brows. Confronting them means diving into the darkness. We don't know what it will cost us. I'm willing to take that risk, Jenna replied, her voice steadying as she steadied herself. What do we need to do, Jessica? Keep reading. The words seem to burst from the pages like venom. They whisper threats but seek the release of their suffering. For souls, for betrayals, she read, her voice trembling with each line. Only when the truth is known can they let go. The shadows shrieked, swirling violently. A darker form emerged from the masses, stretching toward them, its chilling energy causing the air to thicken. Jenna grasped the lamp tighter, the flickering light bathing them in a warm glow, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. What did they betray, Jessica? Jenna urged, breathless. What do we need to reveal? Before she could respond, a rasp of nails on wood echoed from behind the door. The heavy sound sent cold tendrils of fear creeping down Jenna's spine, intertwining with her resolve. They betrayed their own. Jessica read, her eyes widening. Families broken by secrets, misdeeds cloaked in silence. Each spirit holds something precious, a truth buried beneath layers of betrayal. The louder the whispers grew, the more distinct Jenna could hear her own thoughts. Desperation clawed at her heart. We have to find out what secrets they keep. Megan, think. What do you remember? Megan's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition lighting her gaze through tears. He used to mention things, lost opportunities, regrets, but never. Her voice faltered, the realization settling like a weight. It was always about protecting us. That's it, Jenna yelled, adrenaline surging. He's trapped by guilt. Just as Jenna took a step forward, the door burst inward, splintering under the force of the spectral tide. The room filled with a deafening roar, shadows merging, twisting into an agonizing vortex of lost time and souls. Megan! Jenna shouted, instinctively shoving her friend behind her. The shadows reached for them, eager hands pulling at the edges of reality. The journal glimmered in the chaos, its pages now pulsing with desperate energy. Time seemed to freeze when the realization hit Jenna, a memory surfacing like a long-forgotten whisper, a truth that felt more vital than air itself. This isn't just your dad, is it? She yelled to Megan, as the air thickened with dread. It's every single regret of all these souls. The figures shimmered, momentarily stilled by the truth, their faces remorseful and hollow, their fates were intertwined. 1. Mistake echoed through the ages, binding all their souls together. As shadows writhed and the wind howled, Jenna felt the world shift beneath her. Could they salvage the truth before they were swallowed whole? Moments hung in the air like fragile glass, poised to shatter. The walls of the cabin closed in, a cage forged from desperation, secrets, and nightmares. Suddenly, one of the shadows lunged forward, eyes burning with untold pain. The moment had come. Would the echoes of the past be their salvation, or were they already too late? The darkness surged like an angry tide, crashing over them, engulfing hope in its depths. Jenna's heart raced as if it were trying to escape her chest, the shadows clawing at her sanity. In the chaos, she could barely make out Megan's trembling form, clinging to the last remnants of safety behind her. Megan! She cried, her voice barely a whisper against the howl of lost souls. Before she could brace for what was coming, a figure broke free from the mass of writhing shadows. It lunged at Jenna, its outline a nightmarish parody of the human shape, limbs stretched and contorted, a face only half formed, as if the shadows themselves were trying to remember what it once looked like. No! Get back! Jenna shouted, thrusting the lamp further into the darkness, the flickering flame illuminating the ethereal face for a heartbeat. For a moment, she thought she recognized a flicker of familiarity in those haunted eyes. Panic gripped her throat, choking any further words. Jenna, what do we do? David's voice was edged with fear, yet it cut through the chaos like a blade. Jessica! The journal! Jenna shouted, desperately turning toward her friend. Is there anything we can use? Jessica's hands trembled as she riffled through the battered pages, her brow glistening with sweat. The figures in the shadows writhed, their whispers rising to a fever pitch, urging her to surrender. They're all connected by their regrets. Jessica panted, her eyes frantic. If we reveal the truth, maybe. As if sensing their intent, the shadows surged forward, a menacing force pushing Jenna back. Don't! Megan cried, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. What if it brings more harm? Jenna's pulse raced in her ears. We don't have a choice. We can't let their guilt destroy us. The darkness pressed against her, harrowing and relentless. Jenna could feel despair curdling in her stomach, the urge to flee mounting with every heartbeat. But then she thought of Megan herself as a child, every tear shed for a father lost, swaddled in regret. Megan, think. Jenna shouted. You must remember something he mentioned. It's the key. Megan hesitated, her face a whirlwind of doubt and despair. Then, her eyes sparkled with a fragile light. He used to talk about a secret. A deal he made to keep us safe. It was something horrible. What? What did he do? Jenna pressed, her heart pounding, each word bringing terrifying clarity. Megan's brows furrowed, recollecting memories lost to time. We were supposed to move, but he stayed to fix something. Something that shouldn't have been done. And then it hit Jenna like a lightning strike, a realization so profound that it threatened to fracture her thoughts. That's it. He made a choice not just for himself, but to protect everyone. We need to confront that choice. The shadows seemed to hesitate, as if woven by the strength of a revelation. Jenna was breathless, all-consuming fear swirling with the ember of hope kindled by the truth. We have to show them that we understand. That we forgive his mistake. Jessica's voice broke into the overwhelming noise, fierce and steady. Read, Jennifer. We must speak the truth. With a deep breath, Jenna turned toward the swirling abyss and shouted, We see you. We know your sorrow, your regrets. You made hard choices, and that doesn't define who you are. The figures paused, silently connecting with her words, a flicker of light shimmering in the depths of their shadows. But just as a glimmer of hope flickered, that dark figure lunged again, this time more powerful, drawn by Jenna's call. No! Jenna screamed, fear coiling through her gut, freezing her limbs. The shadows surged violently, threatening to suffocate her words in their oily depths. Would their plea resonate, or would they be consumed by the darkness instead? As the air shifted with electric tension, she felt a rush of cold wind, a whispered warning echoing in her mind. Could they awaken the tormented souls before it was too late? With the shadows closing in, the next moments would determine their fate. And the only question that loomed was: would they find peace, or would they be silenced forever? The darkness twisted and swirled around them like living smoke, each shadow seeping deeper into Jenna's thoughts. The figure lunged again, a grotesque slashing movement that sent a chill crawling up her spine. Fear clamped around her heart, drowning every other emotion. Megan. Remember the secret. Focus. Jenna shouted, forcing the words through the rising tide of terror. Megan's face was pale, etched with fear, but deep within her eyes lay a flicker of resolve. The deal, it had something to do with a price. A price he paid to protect us. The urgency in her voice seemed to break through the chaos for a moment, the shadows pausing as if weighing her words. Then we must confront that. David's voice rang out, sharp and certain. We need to make the shadows listen, accept it. Only truth can cut through that veil. Jessica clutched the journal tightly, her knuckles white against the leather cover. But at what cost? She whispered, fear threading through her tone. Truth can heal, but it can also destroy. No. Jenna felt a surge of defiance rolling through her now. She stepped forward, catching the attention of the figure poised to strike. You have to hear us. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if Jenna's voice struck a chord. We see you. We know the weight of your regrets. She took a shaky breath, pushing back her fear. Your choices do not define you, they only shape your story. The sinister figure hesitated, a fleeting moment where something almost human flickered behind its unsettling gaze. Could it be? Did they touch upon something deeper? Jenna pressed on, her voice stronger. We forgive you. We understand the burden you carry. The shadows began to ripple, their forms flickering in and out of focus. Whispers mingled with a low growl, rising and falling, each tone filled with anguish. They were listening. Jenna felt the tension spark above their heads, the air thickening with desperation and the pulse of shadows against reality. Yet, just as the energy shifted, a sudden wave of darkness erupted again, sweeping toward Jenna like a violent breeze that blotted out light. It crashed against her body, and for a heart-stopping moment, she thought she would be swallowed whole. The wind howled, invading her mind with images of despair and suffering, their histories swirling like leaves in a storm. "Jenna!" David shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, but it felt distant, muffled, as if submerged underwater. "Fight it!" Jessica screamed. "Hold on to truth. Hold on to us." Desperate to anchor herself, Jenna focused on Megan's trembling face, a lifeline amid the abyss. "We'll fight this together. We'll expose the truth, break the cycle." Suddenly, the whispering shadows coalesced, swirling tighter and tighter, a vortex of swirling sorrow threatening to pull them apart. Jenna felt it tugging at her soul, threatening to tear her from her friends. Would their connection be enough to shield them? The darkness roared, feeding on her fear, trying to sow doubt, and yet something flickered within her. No, no. She fought against the rising tide, her breath hitching as she muscled through the grip of despair. "We have a choice too." But then, from the depths, a loud, anguished wail erupted, tearing through the shadows like a knife. The ground trembled. A new form broke free, thrashing and twisting, its face indistinguishable, but Jenna could feel it was different, more desperate, more primal. "What is that?" Megan gasped, backing against the wall of shifting darkness. The air buzzed with what felt like raw agony. Compassion swelled in Jenna's chest. "They're still here," Jenna whispered, her voice trembling. "They need us to help them through. We can't let fear rule us." As the shadows writhed, a brilliant light flickered into existence, emerging from Jenna's heart, illuminating their path. Would this light be enough to conquer the encroaching darkness? With everything at stake, a question loomed: had they truly found the way to confront their deepest fears, or was this light merely an illusion waiting to be extinguished? The chaos clamored around them, as the new entity surged forward. Would they break free, or become one with the darkness forever? The cabin trembled on its foundations as the relentless shadows surged forward. Jenna felt the weight of dread closing in like a vice, squeezing the breath from her lungs. She couldn't think. The darkness pressed against her mind like 1,000 icy fingers, tugging at her with stories of bitterness and regret. "Megan!" she shouted, desperation ripping through her voice. The touch of the darkness was overwhelming, but she had to focus on her friend. "Remember what your dad sacrificed. He needs us to forgive him." Megan's eyes widened, and a flicker of recognition shone through the haze of terror. It was about safety, a deal he made. But it cost him us. She gasped, clutching her head, memories flooding back like rising tides. "That's the key," Jenna yelled, heart pounding in sync with the chaos raging around them. "Their pain lies in carrying the burden of that choice. We can help them understand that they're not alone." The shadows thickened, but Jenna pressed on. "We need to confront their fears. We have to show them the truth, however painful it might be." The light within her flickered brighter, fueled by courage, and it felt like a torch amidst the impending darkness. In that moment, the ghostly figures seemed to pause, their features blending into a whirlwind of sorrow and longing. "We have regrets," they seemed to whisper, all voices echoing in unison. "The price we paid has haunted us for an eternity." "Then let us help you find peace," Jenna called, voice breaking through the shrieks of chaos. "You don't have to relive this. We understand the burden." As if her words had struck a chord, the figures began to shift, their shadows coiling and twisting as long-forgotten expressions of grief began to surface. The anger that had consumed them for so long faltered. "Help us," one shadow whispered, a sound so fragile that it cracked like glass. "Our choices." The figure began to dissolve, revealing glimpses of the lives they had led, moments of joy entwined with regret. Jenna felt an urgency coursing through her. Let go of the past. Accept it. It has shaped you, but it does not define you. In unison, the shadows began to pulse, moving in time with Jenna's heart. She stoked the embers of courage within. "You can find light again. Allow us to help you rise above this despair. The oppressive darkness throbbed, the wailing of lost souls echoed in the corners of the cabin. But Jenna stood firm. Holding on to Megan's hand, she felt a connection that could not be severed. Behind them, Jessica and David's eyes mirrored that determination. Now! Jenna yelled, and they all spoke together, chanting the truth of the darkness. Forgive yourself. Step into the light. We're here for you. A shocking silence enveloped them. Shadows began to ripple wildly, and in the stillness, Jenna saw them, the faces of the lost souls, anguished and broken. They began to swell with a gentle glow, silhouettes transforming into soft hues that danced like fireflies. Each whispered truth shattered the chains binding them, and one by one, they found solace. We remember, a voice echoed, trembling with newfound hope. We are free. The very air shifted, morphing from dread into something almost tangible. Light flooded the cabin, illuminating every corner, washing away shadows as an ethereal radiant warmth filled the space. Jenna felt it, a sensation of love and forgiveness enveloping her like a hug from lost family. With the darkness retreating, she turned to Megan. Tears stained her cheeks, but amidst the fear, relief blossomed. They had done it. We helped them, she whispered, amazed, but just then, a gust of wind rushed through, carrying fragments of the past into the beyond. The anguished cries transformed into whispers of gratitude. The shadows twinkled for a moment longer before bursting into a spectacular display of light, beaming across the cabin and out toward the horizon, connecting the past to the future. In that stunning moment, Jenna knew they had faced the terrifying truth and emerged whole. Each breath filled their lungs with warmth, the memories now transformed into something akin to peace. I can't believe we did it, David breathed, awestruck. We freed them, Jessica added, her voice steadying as she looked at her friends with newfound strength. They're finally at rest. As the last echoes faded, they stepped out onto the porch, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. The sun rose over the horizon, washing away the remnants of the night's terror. But as peaceful silence filled the air, Jenna turned to Megan. Your dad, she started, but Megan already understood. He's okay. I know he is. A quiet breeze fluttered around them, filling their hearts with a sense of safety and calm. The horrors of the night were now distant memories, mere shadows against the vibrant backdrop of the world waking up, and as they stood embraced by the light of a new day, everyone knew they would carry this moment with them, a testament of hope, resilience, and the strength that lies in facing one's deepest fears together. So they stepped forward together, ready to embrace whatever came next, leaving behind the echoes of darkness for a life filled with light. This was at the end of their forbidden summer vacation. But the journey of healing had just begun. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And I want to hear from all of you. Flood that comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. You have to share this adventure with at least 5 friends who need to know about the truth hidden in the shadows. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support for the channel and let us dive into the next story together.